and welcome to Bible study. That's right, Bible study. Hey, man, it's Sunday. We are here. You know what we do every Sunday, man. Every Sunday morning, we go through and we read the Bible verse by verse, and we in chapter 11 today, all right, of our Esoteric Bible study. So, what we do is we dig deeper into the scriptures so that you, Christians, you can know exactly what you claim to believe in, and you can come and understand the true hidden meaning of the scriptures that you will not be told by your pastor or your church. All right. So you'll never get a Bible study like this in your church or your from your pastor. All right. So dig. So we're gonna get started. So like we always do at this time, we're coming from the King James version. The King James version, like I always say. You know what I'm saying? We're going through these scriptures verse by verse, and my Bible is getting tore up, y'all. Man, I'm going through them, baby. Going through these scriptures, okay? We reading them. All right, verse by verse. Chapter 11. All right, are y'all ready? Here we go. And it starts, verse 1. Chapter 11, verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. All right, stop right there. Okay, so remember when we had chapter 10 last week, we discovered that they had race was established in chapter 10. So they divided up the three sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And I told you guys, Japheth was, a people that had went into Europe. They were of the lineage of the Caucasian, all right? The white European Caucasian. That's their lineage, all right? Then you had Ham. Ham are the lands of Africa, okay? And the people in Africa, African people. And then you had Shem. Shem were the Semitics, all right? Who were allegedly the promise of God, okay? The ones promised of this God, the God of this book, all right? So then you had Shem. Shem was the last brother. So Shem was allegedly the one who was supposed to get the blessing from this God, from this book, all right? So if you go back, Genesis chapter 9, verse 27, all right, and it reads, it says, God shall enlarge Japheth, all right, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, which means he can hide behind Shem. I keep telling you, all right, and Canaan shall be his servant. Now, Canaan was the son of Ham, okay, an African, and Canaan represented the land of Israel. All right, in modern day. All right, so it's telling you, the author of the book is telling you, is giving you a description of what is occurring in true history. Remember, in Esoteric Bible Study, we go through real true history, geography, geology, astrology. We put all of that together so we can dig deeper and have a true understanding of what you're reading in the scriptures. So that way you won't just read it on the surface and take it literally. The Bible was not meant to be taken literally. It's not a true story, okay? It is a allegory, and it'll tell you that it's in allegory in the Bible. I'm gonna read that scripture to you. It's in Galatians. But anyway, going on. All right, so race has been established. The division and the borders have been established from the different races, okay? So you have white Europeans, you have Africans, and you have Arabs, okay, who Asians or Asiatics, whom they call Semitic, all right? So in this instance, it's trying to tell you something in chapter 11, all right? So when it says in verse 1, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. So it's trying to tell you, the Africans were populated all over the globe, okay? I've been telling you throughout this whole, Bible study series from chapter 1 all the way through. The Africans are the original people on the planet, melanated beings, okay? This is melanin in my skin. Melanated beings are the original people on the planet, the original one. The original humans are African, all right? Melanated beings. So it's telling you right there, it gives you indication. The author, Francis Bacon, the white European French Mason, all right, who was sanctioned by King James in 1611 AD to write this Bible, this King James Version, okay? King James Version, very key. This is King James's Bible, all right? The one that we use in today in the year 2022 came from King James, okay? Written by Francis Bacon, all right? His author. All of this that you see, all of this is King James, all right? Francis Bacon's imagination. And if you Google Francis Bacon, you also know that he created the other book, Shakespeare. He was the hidden pen of Shakespeare. He was also the hidden pen of the Bible, all right? All right, so anyway, that's a little bit of true history. All right, so going back to this telling you, it's giving you an indication right here, saying that the whole world, the whole earth was of one language and of one speech, all right? African tongues, okay? So that's what it's trying to tell you. One people, one nation, one world. It was all melanated. We all spoke the same language. And then it says in verse 2, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, okay, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there, okay? So much there, okay? So it says they. Who are they? They are talking about are the albinos, okay? The albinos, which is the ancestor of the Caucasian, the current Caucasian. All right, so when you're looking at it from the historical perspective, the real history that really occurred. Remember, I told you, the author of this book, Francis Bacon, he had to put bits and pieces of the truth as well as lies inside the Bible to be able to piece this book and this story together. All right, so he had to put bits and pieces in it. It's based on a true story. Remember, if you ever watch a movie based on a true story, you'll see that it's not the full facts, okay? It's not all of it. A lot of it is fabricated, you know, and they have bits and pieces of the truth inside of the story. So when you're watching the movie, it's not 100% how it actually happened, okay? That's the same way with the Bible. The Bible is based on a true story, okay? It's not 100% fact. That's why you cannot take it literally. It's allegory. It's metaphors. It's symbology. It's not meant to be taken literally, okay? So when they say they journeyed from the east. East meaning they came from Russia area, Caucasus Mountains, all right? So they're in the east, and they came down, and they took a look to see, you know, what's going on in the southern parts of Africa, all right? These albinos, Caucasians, all right? And these are Caucasians from the line of Japhet. Japhet, all right? So remember, when I told you in chapter 9, verse 27, it said, God shall enlarge Japhet. That means they're going to grow in numbers. They're going to become powerful. They're going to be in rulership, okay? And he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Go and look at, read it for yourself. Genesis chapter 9, verse 27, okay? So he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. That means he's going to hide behind Shem, okay? Shem is going to be the front while they hide in the back and play puppet master, controlling everything and making all of the rules and all that stuff like that. And Shem will be out front, you know, being the face like of this business. Like this is my business name, Marie Fossar, right? So Shem is the face of the business, and Japhet can hide and dwell in the tents of Shem, Japhet, the white European, all right? So that's what's happening here. They're establishing. So then it's telling you, they came from the east, okay? The Caucasus Mountains, Georgia, you know, Turkey. They came from Kazakhstan, all right? If you remember back in chapter 10, and you go back into the lineage and the line of Japhet, it tells you that one of the children's that of Japhet was Ashkenaz, okay? Ashkenaz, that's in verse 3. Those are one of the children of Japhet, all right? Ashkenaz, you know, today is Ashkenaz Jews, okay? And they come from the land of Kazakhstan, which is east, Russia, okay, modern day Russia today, lower eastern part of Russia, okay, Kazakhstan. Those are the people who are occupying the land of Israel today, calling themselves Jews. They are nothing more than white Europeans, okay? The United Nations gave those people that land in the year 1948 AD when the United Nations sanctioned that Israel will become a nation. Okay. You have to go back into real history and to know. All right. So now you're looking at things that have come to pass. All right. So you're going back in the past to know why things are the way they are today in the future. All right. So you're saying to yourself, from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. The land of Shinar in biblical aspects is Iraq, Iran, okay, near the Persian Gulf. So those Ethiopian Africans from Cush, the line of Cush, they sailed the boats, went onto the monsoon, winds, currents and stuff, and went around, through the seas, and then came through and settled in the land of Mesopotamia, they called it, but it's modern day Iraq, Iran. Now in the Bible, they call it the land of Shinar. All right. So there's many names that they have for this particular land, but it was all African people, African territory, controlled by Egypt. Okay, Kemet. Kemet is the original name for Egypt. All right, so Kemet is the African name for Egypt. The Romans changed the name to Egypt. Okay, that's a Roman name, but its original African name is Kemet. That was Kemet. Territory, African territory, all that land over in that area, Iraq, Iran, Assyria, Lebanon, Israel today, all the way down to Sudan, Nubia. All right. That was all Egyptian territory. All right. All of that area in Saudi Arabia. Okay. That's all African Egyptian territory. All right. Now you got to understand that Africans were populated all over the globe, not just in Africa. Okay, there were Africans in Americas with the Olmecs. All right, there were Africans in Asia, in India. You know what I'm saying, with the Khmer dynasty, the Champas. Okay, all of the, all the way in the Philippines. You had the Andaman. You have the Africans who were in Australia, the Aborigines. Africans were all over the globe. We were the very first, people to create boats, the very first to create boats and to, navigate the seas, using those monsoon current winds to take us from one part of land to the next part of the land. The Africans were the very first people to do so before any white European ever stepped foot on a boat. Okay, so Christopher Columbus was not the first to discover nothing. I'm sorry to bust your bubble. All right. He just get all the credit, by the white Europeans who are controlling this country. They're going to give the credit to their people, and they're going to, whitewash and discredit the African. That's what happens. Okay. All right. So here we go. That's verse 2. And then verse 3 says, and they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. All right, so we're talking about building here, architectural structures, building in that area, in that land. The only thing that they had was, mud bricks. Mud was the resource. So you only had to use what you had available to you in order to build. Even though you have the knowledge and skill set of that of a builder, you can actually build lands and actually started, building the city and things of that nature. So it's telling you, it's giving you indication that they started building cities, they started building lands. All right, these Africans who came into, these Ethiopian Africans who came into that area of Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, all in that area by the Persian Gulf, Acadia, all of that stuff in that area. They started building cities and started building, building structures and all of that stuff like that because they had the knowledge from the Nile Valley. Okay. The knowledge from the African Nile Valley, these Africans took the knowledge that they have passed down from ancestor to ancestor to ancestor to go and build a city. All right. And it's telling you right there in the Bible. All right. So, and they said, go to, let us build us a city right there and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. All right. So the author is trying to confuse you here, saying that let's make us a name, unless we be scattered abroad upon the whole earth. Now, remember, when they wrote this Bible in 1611 AD, slavery was already occurring. Okay. Slavery was already happening. The Arab had enslaved Africans in the 1500s. And then you had the white Europeans, Portuguese, the Dutch, the Spaniards, and then the British English. They all came a part of the slave trade. Okay. And they started getting into the business of slavery and enslaving Africans. And it was spreading abroad. Okay. So that's what they're trying to tell you in the book. All right. So when the Africans were building cities and towers, they were doing that, building civilizations and constructing all type of stuff. Kemet, Egypt, was the very first civilization, one of the greatest civilizations the Africans ever had built is Egypt. Okay. And it's still existing today in modern day times. You can go and see the ruins, and go and see it and to yourself and see with your own two eyes the magnificent, structures that the Africans built, in Egypt. You can even come over to the Americas, go down to South America, Mexico, all right, where people go to Cancun. Everybody loves to go to Cancun to go to the beach and party and have a good time. But if you take a short drive, 2 hours to the Yucatan Peninsula and go through the little jungle area, you will see the beauty and manifestation of Chichen Itza, okay? The pyramid structures that the Olmec, the African Olmec built, the mastaba, step pyramids that the Olmec, the African Olmecs built in Chichen Itza is right there in Cancun. So whenever you go to Cancun, make sure you go to the little front desk of your hotel room and get you a brochure and take the little tour, okay? Take the tour to Chichen Itza and go and see the Great Pyramid that is there in the Yucatan Peninsula. All right. So you can go into Chichen Itza and see the greatness of the African there, and go into all of South America and take a look at all of the Olmec heads down in Jalapa, Mexico, near Veracruz. All right. Right along the Gulf Coast. That's where the Africans came and settled in. They sailed right into that lands right there. The currents, the monsoon current winds of the seas brought them right on in, and they went into Veracruz. Okay. That's where they came in, and you can see the Olmec heads. They chiseled those. That's an African skill set. All right. So then it was telling you, let us make man in name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Right. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. I'm going to say that one more time. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. Now, you've been lied to, all right? The church will tell you that Lord means God. Two different distinctions. If you read the book, you would see where they say specifically God is this. So when you go back to Genesis chapter 1, it says God created the heavens and the earth. You know what I'm saying? It didn't say the Lord created the heavens and the earth. So there's a distinction. So when it says here in chapter 11, verse 5, and the Lord came down, Lord is a British term, is a British English title. Okay. It is a title for a superior. Whenever you go to British right now, you can Google on your phone, what is the definition of the word Lord? Google it on your phone. It is a title for a superior. Does not mean, God. Okay. The church will lie to you. The church is confused because they're being taught by white European theologians who's dictating to the pastor how they should teach their congregations. Okay, so these pastors who go to these seminary schools, they're being taught by white Europeans, and they're telling them how to go and preach to their congregation. What is acceptable to be told to the congregation and what is not. Okay, there's certain scriptures in the Bible, that pastors cannot preach on. They will never touch them. And even if you ask them, they're going to say, oh, it's God's will. They don't have an answer because they can't answer it. Okay. So when it says, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. Okay. That's telling you that someone came down. All right. And that someone who came down was the white albino, the Caucasian. All right. They came out of the Caucasus Mountains. They came down from Russia. They came down from Kazakhstan into India. They came down into India and those Africans down there. They came down into Kuwait and those Africans there. Those Sumerian Africans from Ethiopia who were occupying that land, the white European came down and infiltrated. Okay, they came in, took a look around, what's going on over here, just like Becky showing up at the barbecue spot, calling the police. Black folks just out there in the park, barbecuing, minding their own business, having a good time. And here comes Becky. You know what I'm saying? She just don't like that. She gonna call the police. Hey, they out here. That's the same thing as trying to tell you. And it says in verse 5, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. So the Africans were building cities, they were building towers, just like you see in Egypt right now today. They have obelisks down there, just beautiful erected, Tekken obelisks, temple structures, the pyramids, just beautiful structures that are still standing today. The Africans built that and it still exists today. 7,000, 10,000 years, just structures that are just amazing how they built them, okay, that were built to last. Those structures are built to last, and the Africans had the technology and the knowledge to do so, okay, and it's still standing today. So when it says the Lord came down, it's talking about the white European albino. They came down from those Caucasus Mountains to see what was going on, what these African people were doing, and they came to infiltrate and get themselves inside so they can conquer from within. They were plotting. And you'll see here in verse 6, right? Go to verse 6, and it says, and the Lord said, behold, the people is one. This is what they discovered. And they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will they have imagined to do will be restrained. Nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Think about it. The African has so much creativity. We created everything. I mean, if you look back and you Google all of the inventions of African people, of Black people, inventions, just Google it on your phone, inventions of African people, and you'll see a list, a scrolling list of things that Africans have invented that you still use today, that you still need today. Okay, the light bulb, all this, you see the stuff, all type of stuff, the street lights, all type of stuff. Irons and stuff like that you still use today, Africans created. The imagination of the African is just amazing because we get signals from the cosmos. The ultimate creator gives us signals and stuff like that. We just get downloads all the time. And we have this knowledge and we always creative. You know what I'm saying? We just create new stuff. We always come up with new terms, new languages. We got a new saying almost every year. You know what I'm saying? We don't say the same stuff we used to say 5-10 years ago. You know what I'm saying? We got something new. We creating stuff all the time. So it says right there in verse 6, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. The imagination of the African is so tremendous. Nothing will keep them from, you know, building great infrastructures or doing great things or creating great and innovative things and stuff like that. Nothing. So then that Lord, that albino, was jealous. And it said in verse 7, go to, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. You hear that? Let's go down and corrupt them. Let's go down and destroy what they started. Let's go down and take. Let's go down and wipe. Let's just get rid of their language so they can't talk to each other no more. They can't create no more. You know what I'm saying? So the Lord, it said, scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Babel. You know, here we go. They trying to confuse you once again, trying to say that Babel is something evil and wicked. You know, when people say, oh, you're just rambling and you're babbling and stuff like that, they make it such a negative connotation. But Babel was a city that was created by Nimrod. Nimrod was an Ethiopian son of Cush. Cush is Ethiopia, the land of Ethiopia. So you're saying to yourself that Babel is the city that was created by Nimrod in the story, okay? But if you go back to true history and you tie it back to the land that they excavated, the anthropologists and all this stuff like that, the archaeologists, they go and excavate lands and they pull up and they do digs and stuff like that, and they pull evidence, you know, because they trying to prove that this is real, all right? But when they dig and they find, what they discover is African territories, African lands, African artifacts, African bones, African everything. They don't find any evidence for this. They find the opposite. They find African. They don't find any evidence that supports this claim, the stuff that is saying in here, because this is based on a true story. This is not true history. This is not true history at all. This is a fabricated story, mythological story created by Francis Bacon, a white European French Mason, for King James. And the purposes was to control the masses of the people and justify slavery. So once you know and understand that, then you will know what is going on. So the white albino came down, intermixed, saw all of the greatness the Africans was doing, building cities. The Africans was building towers. Africans were building buildings. The Africans had one language. They were all on one accord. Their imaginations were great. And it said right there in verse 6, and this began to do now, nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Nothing will stop them. If we don't stop them, let's confound their speech so they won't talk to each other. Let's put them in chains. Let's enslave them so they can't go back and start working and building together. Let's take them and make them our property. Let's confound their speech and let's give them English. Let's force them to learn English. You hear me? I'm speaking English right now. I'm an African descent. I'm not speaking Swahili. I'm speaking English. And why? Because it was forced. Okay? You got to understand what happened in order for you to know why you're doing what you're doing today, in this day and time, right now. Why do you speak English instead of Swahili? Why do you speak English instead of German? Why do you speak English instead of Chinese? Or why do you speak English instead of Spanish if you're not Hispanic? Why? And then I could even give you that. Spanish is a Romanist language. Okay, that came from the Romans. So that's the reason why they speak Spanish. It's a Romanist language. Latin, Spanish is from Rome. The root, the etymology of the root of the language is Roman. That's white European. So everything that we do today came from the conquest, after the conquest of the African, when the white European came down out of the Caucasus Mountains and they conquered into North Africa in 332 BCE with Alexander the Greek, everything changed. The world changed. Okay, so that's what I was trying to tell you. All right, so if you go back and you watch these Esoteric Bible Study series, you'll see I read every chapter from one. We're going through Genesis. We're going through the book. We're going through Bible, and I'm breaking it down. Esoteric. I went from chapter 1 all the way through. We are in chapter 11 right now. Okay, we're reading it verse by verse. So digging deeper so you can understand what is you claim to believe in. All right. Now, verse 10. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begot Araphax 2 years after the flood. Okay. I already broke the flood down. Go back and watch the video. I'm not doing that again. And Shem lived after he begot Araphax 500 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And Araphax lived 530 years, and he begot Salah. I'm not going through the begats, all right? So that's all the lineage, right? So Shem was the one who was supposedly, this God had blessed with. So going back to chapter 9, verse 26, and it says, and he said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Now, Canaan is the son of Ham, the brother of Shem. All right. Now, I don't know how they distinguish three sets of different races in this story, this biblical story. Now, these individual people, Japhet is individual people. Shem, they're individual people. Okay. But Ham are considered nations. All right. So when you read in chapter 10, and you go to verse 20, it says, these are the sons of Ham after their families, after their tongues, in their countries, and in their nations. Okay, so the Africans were countries and nations already. All right, as soon as we came off the boat, out of Noah's boat, we were already established. African nations are already there. So that's what the author is trying to tell you, is giving you a clue, an indication that, hey, these Africans were already here first before we fabricated the story. So we can't lie to the people and tell them that, hey, look, these Africans didn't exist, because they all over the globe. We can't deny it. We can't get away from them. But we got to try to somehow twist the story. Somehow twist the story to make it seem like we fit somewhere in that history, somewhere in that history. The white European is trying to interject themselves into African history. That's what's happening with the Bible. Okay, so you got to be able to see this. You got to be able to understand what's going on. All right, so then when you got to the begots, let's see, verse 15. And Salah lived after he begot Eber. So a lot of the Black Hebrew Israelites today, they would try to say Eber is from the lineage of Hebrews. Nope, sure is not. Two separate individuals, okay? Eber is not Hebrew. That does not mean Hebrew. They're lying, taking the book out of context, okay? They wanted to believe Hebrew because it has some type of claim to whatever narrative that they're trying to preach to the people, which is false, okay? The promise was given to Abram, and we're going to see that in the next chapter 12, okay? That's who became the Hebrew, his children after him, all right? So in the story, this Eber person right here that came through the line of Shem is someone totally separate, all right? Two different people in the story. You have to understand. You have to be able to read. So if anybody comes to you with a concept, an idea, or, some preaching, they trying to convert you into some religion, you need to go back and read it for yourself and look at it. And don't just believe what people are telling you out of their mouth, okay? You go back and you read it for yourself, just like I'm reading it to you now. Don't believe everything that's coming out of my mouth. You go back and you read for yourself. Go read for yourself and you see what exactly I'm showing you. Go and read it. That's all I'm trying to tell you. So, and Eber lived 430 years and begot Peleg. And Eber lived after begotten Peleg 430 years and begot sons and daughters. Blase, blase. Let's move down. All right. Move down to verse 27. All right. Genesis chapter 11, verse 27. Now, these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram. Abram, okay, very important. Nahor and Haran. And Haran begot Lot, okay? And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. All right, so Ur of the Chaldees is modern day Iraq today, Persian Gulf, okay? So it says right there, now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram. Now, Abram was the character who was actually promised by God, that they would become a mighty nation. All right. So God made a promise with Abram. Okay. And he changed his name to Abraham. All right. Abraham. Now, why did he put the indication, the title of Ham on the end of Abram's name? Why did this God of this book change the name of the character Abram to Abraham and gave him the promise of a mighty nation? I'm going to tell you why. Abram, in the land of Ur of Chaldea, is one of those descendants of the Albino that came down into the land of Iraq and Iran and mixed in with those Africans, those Ethiopian Africans that were there first. The Ethiopian Africans were the very first indigenous people of those lands. And it's trying to tell you that this character, Abram, was born in this city. So that means those people were having sex. Okay, those albinos and those Africans were having sex, creating babies. That's why it tells you. Now, these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram. Begot means they had sex and had a baby. Okay, begot. If you see that in the Bible, begot this, begot that, begot, that means they had a baby. They had sex, created a baby, and then they begot this child. Okay, that's what that means. Nahor and then Haran died before his father Terah in the land of nativity in Ur of Chaldea, which is modern day Kuwait. All right, Iraq. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of, this one coming from the line of Shem, Abram coming from the line of Shem, which in reality, those people came down. Remember, it said it in verse 6. It said it in verse 2 in chapter 11. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, which is modern day Iraq. They, which is the albino. That's who they are. And they are allegedly from the line of Shem. Okay? These are white Europeans coming down from the east. They said they were Asiatic. But remember, when you go to chapter 9, verse 27, it says, God shall enlarge Japhet. That means they're going to grow in numbers. They're going to be, rulership and be in charge. And he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. That means he's going to be able to hide behind Shem. Okay? Those two going to be able to hide behind each other, behind Shem. And then they said the verse before that in 26, chapter 9 of Genesis. And he said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. They establishing slavery is going to occur to the African, and the white European is going to be in charge, and the African is going to be beneath them, the servant. They're establishing it right now. Okay. So remember, this book was written in 1611 AD. Slavery was already happening in the world. So there's nothing new. They're just trying to cover it up and justify and validate why they have the right to enslave African people, according to this book, their God that they created, their God. So if you call yourself a Christian today, you are worshiping a white European God that was created by a white European male. That's what you're worshiping. And it says, blessed be the Lord God of Shem. So you fast forward to chapter 11. And you go, and they said in verse 2, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east. They came from Russia, Caucasus Mountains. They came down from the east. And it says they found a plain in the land of Shinar, which is modern day Iraq today, which is they call the land of Ur of Chaldea, Shinar, that whole area. Okay. Iraq, Iran, Assyria, that's Shinar, according to the Bible. Okay. So if you don't know that, you don't know the geography, you will be confused. You'd be like, what is Shinar? You would think it's some fantasy, some imagine. It's like some made up, land that God had and stuff. Like, no, it's just the same land. The earth is the same. They just changed the name over time. The earth doesn't change. The names of the land change. Okay. So then it says, and they said one to another. Here we go in verse 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one. In verse 6, and they have all one language, one African language. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Verse 7, Genesis chapter 11. Let us go down. Let the white European come on down to Africa, African territories, and let's confound their language. Let's disrupt. Let's corrupt. Let's taint. Let's destroy. Let's take. Let's steal. Let's do all of these wicked and evil, deceptive things to these people because they're doing something great and we're jealous. We don't like that. We want it. Look at who took it all. Look at real history. Who took it all from Africans? Who came and conquered? The white European. Think about it, man. Y'all put 2 and 2 together. Okay. Put 2 and 2 together. 2 and 2 make 4. So the math is adding up. So when it says go back and you fast forward to verse 27, it's trying to tell you something. Now, these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram. Now, Abram, they said, was the one who came from the line of Shem, who God is blessing. Blessed be the Lord God of Shem in verse 27 of chapter 9. So it's establishing right now that this Shem character has a son named Abram who's going to be promised from this God of this book. Okay. But then they did something in this book. The author did something to show you that they changed the name of Abram after the promise. We're going to see in chapter 12 next week. Next Sunday, come next Sunday, same time, we're going live. We're going to Esoteric Bible Study. I'm going to show you chapter 12, where his name was changed from Abram to Abraham. Ham, that Ham is the son of Africa. Ham in Arabic, Abraham in Arabic is black. It means black. So it's telling you the land of black, Bethlehem, the land of black. It's telling you, indication, giving you the knowledge where the author is trying to tell you, who was in the land first. It was the Africans and who the promise should go to. So when you see these black Hebrew Israelites today, on the street corners, yelling with the megaphone. We are the chosen people of Israel. We are this and we are that. They are half true and half incorrect. They're half correct and half incorrect, because all of this is made up, fabricated from the white Europeans' imagination. All they're doing is telling you in this book that Africans were on the land first. They were the indigenous people. That doesn't mean that they were the original Hebrews and all of that stuff like that, because this stuff is made up. This is fake. This is mythological. This is imagination. This is fantasy. Okay? There was no such thing as a Hebrew. No such thing as a Hebrew. No author ever written, or historian, Diodorus, Herodotus, none of them wrote anything about a Hebrew. If these people were so great and so mighty as they got depicted in this book, then you would see remnants of their greatness all over the globe. You would see remnants of their greatness in Israel, remnants of their greatness all over the areas that they said they conquered into. But you don't. When the archaeologists go and chisel today, they go and do archaeological digs and finds and stuff like that. The anthropologists and all this stuff, they come out and they dig and they dig and they dig. They find African artifacts. They find Egyptian artifacts. They find Ethiopian artifacts. They find Olmec artifacts. They don't find no Hebrew. What is that? It's a made-up myth. Just like this business name right here, Marifo Sar. This is my business name. Okay? This is a business name. This is not, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? You can change this. That's why the names of the Hebrew changed 3 times. They went from Hebrews to the children of Israel to the Jews. They changed the name, the business name, 3 times. Think about it. It's nothing but a title. They are not, all of this stuff talking about you're anti-Semitic, you're anti, for what? There's no such thing as that. It's all made up. It's an imagination. It's fictitious. White European, okay? They all white Europeans. That's all they are. There's no different, man. They're melanated. There's melanated beings on the planet, and then there's non-melanated beings on the planet. That's the only 2 beings on the planet. The rest of this, the rest of these different categories and names that they give people and all this stuff is fabrication. It's imagination. It's a way to divide people. It's a way to separate people, to make them, superior over another race of people. Now, when you say right here in verse 27, Abram came through this, Shem, and all that stuff like that, and then Haran died before his father, Terah, in the land of his nativity, in Ur of the Chaldees, which is Iraq today, that African territory mixing in, having those babies and stuff like that, they created the Arab. First, it was the Persian. Then the Persian, came in, and then, they became the Arab, ultimately, that you see today in the world today. The Arab is nothing more than a mixture of white Europeans and Africans. That's why you have some real dark-skinned Arabs. You see them in the gas station. You know what I'm saying? They had dark skin, but they had straight hair and stuff like that. That's Ethiopia. Ethiopia have straight hair. Okay? Dark skin. But then you have some light-skinned Arabs, straight hair. You see them in the gas station, but they have some form of melanin inside their skin. That's the reason. They're mixed babies. Mixed babies. There's no different. People need to wake up. Stop playing, man. Stop playing. That's the reason why you're able to create. If you can't create with an animal. You can't procreate with an animal. A human can only procreate with another human. An animal and a human cannot procreate. Hello? So that's the reason why. I mean, come on, man. All of this, it's just foolishness. All of this stuff. And we get everything, all the principles were given here, So this is indoctrination. The Bible is indoctrination, okay? It's program designed for, to keep the masses dumbed down, timid, submissive, so they won't rise up against the powers that be. The powers that be are a few. They're only a few. They don't outnumber, the masses of the people. But the masses of the people choose to bow down to the powers that be because the powers that be have this. And they're validating and they're saying, okay, you're going against this, then you're going against God. And then people who are spiritual be like, oh, no, I'm scared. I don't want to go against God. You know what I'm saying? They get scared. Oh, no. I'm not going against that. You know what I'm saying? Because they fear the unknown. They don't know what's going to happen after death. When they close their eyes, they don't know. No one knows. There is no absolute. Now, if you're using the Bible, right, as a means for moral support, and you just want to use it as a moralistic guide, a compass to help you morally, stay in, a nice and peaceful and loving way. There's some nice scriptures in here. Don't get me wrong. Proverbs is nice. You got some things in Proverbs, that are nice. Some stuff that Jesus said is nice, in the book. You know what I'm saying? Loving, kind things. But then there's also some, things that are evil and wicked in the book. And you got to be able to decipher the difference. You got to be able to see the truth and decipher, okay, this is good, I'll use it. That's bad, I'm not going to mess with that. You know what I'm saying? So, but if you're saying that, okay, this book is the absolute truth, then you're fooling yourself. If you're saying that this book is the absolute truth, that there's, this God in heaven, waiting for you, sitting on the throne in heaven, and they got houses with mansions and stuff like that, and the streets paved with gold and all of this, that, and the third. Why would you have the same stuff that you could see here on the earth in heaven? Come on, think about it, man. Why would you have, heaven looks just like earth. You can see, you can see mansions and all of that stuff in in California. You can go to California in the hills and see mansions. You can see, golden streets and stuff. And you go down in Saudi Arabia, you can see golden streets. They got streets paved with gold in Saudi Arabia. What's different? Think about it. See, people get so caught up in the literal, they don't dig deeper. Now, like I told you, Bible is an allegory. All right. I told you that's an allegory. Matter of fact, let me get it real quick so I can read it to y'all. Y'all, hold on a second. I know we live, but hold on a second. I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give it to you so you can see. I'm gonna give it to you. Yep, right here. Let's see, Galatians chapter 4, verse 24. All right. Galatians chapter 4, verse 24. Let's turn to it. Hang on a second. I'm going to read it to you. Since y'all just, everybody take the Bible literally. I'm going to read it to you straight out your own Bible. Here we go. Here we go, right here. It says, the allegory of Abram. Right here. All right, so I'm going to start at verse 21. This is Galatians chapter 4, starting verse 21, and I'm going down to verse 24. I'm going to read it right here. Here you go, right here, straight out the book, right out the Bible. And it says, tell me, ye that desire to be under the law, do ye not hear the law? For it is written that Abraham, which is black, there he goes, had two sons, the one by a bondmaid, the other by a free woman. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh. But he of the free woman was by promise. All right. And then here we go. Which things are an allegory? For these are the two covenants, the one from the Mount Sinai, which gendered to bondage, which is Agar, which these things are an allegory. So they told you right there. If Abraham was an allegory and his sons were allegories, the rest of the book is an allegory. Hello. I'm just trying to show you. If Abraham, who was the father of many nations, that according to this book, and he was the one who started it all with, Jacob, you know what I'm saying, and the children of Israel. If all of that was an allegory, then there is no promise. There is no, nothing. Okay? It's nothing. It's all an allegory. It told you right there in Galatians rather, chapter 4, verse 24. I just read it to you. Go and read it for yourself. All right. Anyway, I'm done for this week. I'm finished because I got to go somewhere. I got somewhere to be. All right. It's 12 o'clock. I got somewhere to do. So I got to end this. All right. So remember, like I said, man, this has been another Marifa moment. This is another esoteric Bible study where we broke down the scriptures, verse by verse, and went in and we dug deep. All right. Hopefully you learned something. Go back and rewatch it. Comment, subscribe to the channel. You know what I'm saying? Share it with your friends, whatever like that. Bring your children so they can learn and understand. This is esoteric Bible study, digging deeper into the scriptures so that you will know true history, geography, geology, astrology, what really happened and what the true meaning of these scriptures really are. Okay? The Bible is not meant to be taken literally. All right? It's all allegory. I just read it to you in Galatians chapter 4, verse 24. Just read it to you. It's all an allegory. It's not meant to be taken literally. Okay? But anyway, like I said, man, it's been another Marifa moment where knowledge has been reborn. And remember, the more you know, the more you'll grow, and the better off we all shall be. So until next time, I'll say love and light. Peace.